Okay, so what I'm going to do, if you notice the video has been kind of divided into two windows, so I'm actually going to go through and knit each one of these stitches in the pattern, and then I'll kind of point out where I'm at in the pattern, and then you can kind of follow along that way to see exactly what I'm doing. So what this is going on down here, this is in the knitting instructions, this is a setup section before you get into this knitting chart. The setup section is actually written out or typed out with the instructions, and it's 6 rows basically. It's a drop stitch pattern that you put on before you begin or get into your knitting chart, the actual main part of this project. So we're on row 1 in the chart. We're actually beginning in the lower right corner. It basically says those are open boxes, so it says to knit the next, or knit 4 stitches. So that's what we're going to just knit these 4 stitches here. Now at this time, before I get into this repeat zone, I'm actually going to put in a stitch marker. And that means that we're now getting into the 15 stitch repeat. Alright, so then the next box, the next 2 boxes are 2 minuses, which according to the stitch key means to purl those stitches. So that's 1, 2. And then the next 4 boxes, or 4 stitches, are knit stitches, because we're on the right side. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the next 2 stitches are minus symbols, so those are purled on the right side. And then the next 3 stitches are open boxes with nothing in them, so those are knitted. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now we're up to that box with a circle in it, which again I kind of refer to as a phantom stitch, because it's one that wasn't there that we're going to put on but then take off in the second row. So it nets to 0 additional stitches. So that's a yarn over. And then the next 3 stitches are knit stitches. So 1, 2, 3. And so now we are at the end of that zone, or that region, but we have to do this 3 more times. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put on a stitch marker, and then you jump back to the beginning of this repeat section. Of course, it's 2 minus symbols, which is purl 2. And then the next 4 stitches are knit stitches. And then the next 2 stitches are purled. And the next 3 stitches are knitted. And then you've got your yarn over. And then the next 3 stitches are knitted. And now you're again at the end of this repeat section. So put on a stitch marker, and then go back to the beginning of this, where that red bracket is on the right, and then purl 2. So I'll finish out this row 1. Well, I won't finish it out, but I'll get to at the end of the 4th repeat section, and then I'll meet you back. Okay, so I'm at the end of my well, I'm not quite at the end of my bracket, but I'm almost at the end of this 4th repeat section. So I'm right here at the phantom stitch, where I introduced the phantom stitch, which it's a yarn over. And then we're going to knit 3. And now we are at the end of that section. So we've done it 4 times. We can leave the zone, if you will. It kind of reminds me of a relay race. Put your stitch marker on, and then now we're going to do the last 4 stitches, which is, according to the knitting chart, with the symbols, the two minuses, which are two pearl stitches, and then 4 knit stitches, and then 2 purl stitches, and we should have 4 remaining on our needle for those last final 4 knitted stitches, and indeed we do. Okay, so now we turn our work, and now we move up the chart 1 row directly above, and that's where we'll begin row 2. And so we're still knitting from right to left, but now we are working the chart from left to right to get back to the far right. So now we've got those open boxes again. However, we're now on the wrong side of our work. So according to the stitch key, since we're on the wrong side of the work, those open boxes now mean purl. And then the same thing with the minus symbols. The minus symbols switch roles, where now the minus symbols you are to knit while on the wrong side. So the first 4 stitches are purled. And then the next 2 stitches are knitted. And then the next 4 stitches are purled. And then the next 2 stitches are knitted. And then you move your stitch marker, and now we are entering, but from the left side, that red bracketed zone again. So it's, according to this, 2 open boxes, so that means purl 2. And now here is where we're going to net that extra stitch that we put on back down to just the 1. So we introduced an additional stitch here with this yarn over. But the next symbol there, which is that upside down Y, which leans to the right, says to purl 2 together. So we're going to purl the regular stitch as well as that yarn over together. There you go. And then we do have to do the yarn over, which subsequently will be absorbed in the row above it, in row 3. And then we're going to knit the next 3 stitches. I'm sorry, purl the next 3 stitches. And then the next 2 stitches we're going to knit. And then the next 4 stitches we're going to purl. And the next 2 stitches we're going to knit. And we are at the end of that repeat zone, but we have to do this 3 more times. So slip your stitch marker and then go back to the beginning to the left and then do it again. So I'll continue this row out and we'll meet you back when we get right here and leave the zone to finish out those last 4 stitches. Okay, so we're at the end of this repeat section. There's the 2 minuses, which are to knit 2. And then of course slip your stitch marker and then finish out the row. We can leave the zone now and finish out the row with the last 4 stitches, which according to the knit stitch, or the stitch key in the knitting chart, is to purl 4. And then we turn our work, and now we are on row 3, so we're back on the right side of our work. And so what I'm going to do is I'll go through the first few stitches rather, and then when I get to the stitch that I haven't done for you, I'll come back and demonstrate that for you. Okay, so I'm right here in the knitting chart, getting ready to purl those first 2, or purl the next 2, I should say. And then it says to knit 2, and then to do a slip, knit, and pass. So we've just netted that back to the 1 stitch, because it was 2. It was 1 and then it became 2, now it's back to 1. And then of course we have to do a yarn over now. And then knit the next 3 stitches. Actually, I did that wrong. I had it right first time. Put your yarn over. And then we go back to the beginning of the repeat sections. First, slip your stitch marker, and then go back to this point right here. So I'll finish out row 3 and then come back and meet you. Well, actually, I won't meet you again until row 5, because row 4 is identical to row 2, and you've already seen that. Okay, so I'm beginning row 5. I finished row 3 and then did row 4, and row 4 was identical to row 2. This is row 5, which we are knitting the first 4 stitches up to the stitch marker, which represents that red bar, or that red line. And then we've got 2 purl stitches. Now, we are to the point where we are doing our cabling. So it's a 4-stitch left cable. So what we're doing is we're taking 2 stitches off of the left needle, lay it forward, and then you knit the next 2 stitches off of the left needle, and then you knit these 2 stitches off of the cabling needle. And then we're at the end of that, and so we go back to the beginning. So that's purl 2. And we do our cable. So 2 off, hit forward, hit the next 2, and then knit these 2 directly off of the cabling needle. One way that you can do it too is you can actually place these 2 stitches back onto the left needle and then knit them off the left needle, but it's just as proper to knit them directly off of the cabling needle. My cabling needle is of a different gauge, so sometimes it's easier to do it that way, is put them back onto the same gauge needle. And then purl these next 2, and then knit 2, and then do your slip, knit, pass, and then go back and repeat. for your third one. So that is how you read knitting charts. They're very easy to do once you understand them, and pretty much any knitting chart that you, hopefully now any knitting chart that you come across, you should be able to translate it, because they're all the same as far as the only difference to them is the actual stitch or stitches that are within them. So thank you for watching my video. I do appreciate it, and please do subscribe to my channel for other knitting tricks, tips, and how-tos, as well as other tutorial demonstrations. Thanks again.